In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about submodule. So submodule is actually a tool in Git that is used to manage multiple repositories. So let's say right now I've created a central repository here. It can have multiple other remote repository which is under the central repository. A central repository can be created to track the other remote repository. Okay, and not only that, the central repository can track each of the specific commit of the particular remote repository which is under the central repository. Okay, so it's actually a tool that is used to manage multiple repository. And let's say if you have like 10 or 20 remote repository, right, you are not going to download it one by one. So what you can do is that you can have a central repository which tracks all of the remote repository that you want, and then you can specify which remote repository that you want to download with just one or two commands. Okay, so right now I'm going to proceed with an example to show how the Git submodule works. So right now I have created a central repository here, and then a library one, lib1 in short form, remote repository, and lib2 remote repository. Okay, so right now I'm going to go to git bash. I'm going to do a git clone the central repository. Okay, so right now it will clone a central repository. So I'm going to change to central and do git status. So there's nothing here right now, right? And what I want to do right now is that I want to add the library one, this one remote repository, under the central repository. What I can do is that I can use this command, git submodule add, with the remote repository URL that I want to add. Okay, so using this command, git submodule add, it will add your library one remote repository in under the central repository, and it will clone everything from the library one remote repository into the central one. So you can see in the central directory here, not only is the library one remote repository is being added, and also there's a file called .git module file. So let's open it up. So you see in this .git module files, it contains the information of your submodule. So it's saying that this is your submodule library 1, and the path is lib1. This is your path, library 1, and also the URL of your submodule. Okay, so this .git module file is store the information of your submodule. Okay, so let's do a git diff cache. So because right now your lib1 and .git modules, when you do a git submodule add, it automatically goes into the staging area once it has successfully cloned the lib1. So if you do git diff cache, right, you see in your .git module files, this is the information that is being added, and also in your library one, it says that this is the commit ID that is going to be tracked by the central repository. So if you go change the directory to library one, right, if you do git log, you can see that this is the commit ID of, this is the latest commit ID of your library one. And if you do git diff cache in your central repository, it's saying that your central repository is tracking this particular commit of your library one, which is this one, fa2e, fa2e. Okay, so right now I'm going to commit this, make a commit in the central repository, saying that I have added this library one submodule. Okay, so right now at this particular commit is tracking the library one submodule. Okay, so right now I also want the central repository to track a library 2 submodule. So I'm going to proceed with git submodule add. So I'm going to add the library 2 submodule into the central repository. So right now, you see .git module files. This is the information of the submodule that is just added into your central repository, which is library 2, the path is library 2, and this is the URL of your submodule, library 2. Okay, so you also see that the library 2 path is being created, and inside this is the readme file. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to add this library 2 submodule. So you can see that in your central repository, we have created two commits. For this commit is tracking the library1 submodule, and for this commit is tracking the library2 submodule. So right now, if I do git show, you will see in your .git module files, this is the information of your which is added into the .git module files, and also in your library2, the central repository is tracking this particular commit. Okay. So another thing I want to tell you is that in submodule, the central repository will only track the commit which is pointing by the head in your submodule. Okay, it doesn't track the changes of your submodule. Okay, so right now I'm going to clear everything, and I already have made two commits. I'm going to do a git push origin master. So right now I've pushed the two commits into the central repository. So let's go to the central repository. You can see that submodule is being added into the central repository, and this is how submodule looks like in the central repository. And we have .git module files, library1 and library2. So if I open this one up, it will direct me to the library1 remote repository. And also if I open this one up, it will direct me to the library2 remote repository. So let's go to the commit. So you can see that in your central repository, is saying that this library1, the central repository is tracking this particular commit, FA2E. So this is the commit that is tracking of the library1. And in the library2, is tracking this particular commit, CEA12. CEA12. Okay, so this is how you add a submodule into the central repository and how you manage multiple repository in a central repository.